Hey everyone, I'm Rick the Pilot Teacher, and today you're going to come along with me on a flight while I use the A-Star to sling out some exploration core samples. And then I think I'm going to sling a drum of fuel back to camp. So come along and see how I do it. So for me to get started slinging a piece of equipment, or in this case some mining core samples, what I'm going to be using is this thing called a remote hook, and it's basically a hook that is electrically operated by a button on my cyclic, and it's on the end of a 100-foot long line that connects all the way up to the cargo hook on the bottom of the helicopter. What this is great for is so that I can release the load whilst I'm still in flight. So basically I can put the load on the ground, press the button, and it releases the hook on the end of the line there, so it allows me to basically either fly away and go and pick up another load, or I can move the aircraft away and park it in a different location. So now the aircraft's all ready to be lifted off. Just going to lift into a hover, quick check of my centre of gravity, make sure my skids are clear, quick check of the gauges, and now I'm going to start climbing vertically, looking down through this vertical window. On the A-Star it's a bit wide from my seat to the window, so we have this floor mounted slinging window, as it's called, which allows me to look straight down from my seat, and pretty much this is the exact view that I have. So yeah, it's not much, but that's all we got. So I'm climbing up and just slowly staying over the load and bringing the hook so it's the line's all taut and the hook comes up basically over the top of the load, and I'm doing it gently so that the net has a chance to kind of unwind. Here it's getting taut, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to hold my position, hold my power, and I'm just going to have a quick check of my gauges here, quick check of my power, just to make sure I'm not pulling over 100%, and now I can start to lift the load up. Here unfortunately I wasn't over it, it's got a bit of a slight drift to the left, about 6 feet, which yeah, I'm kind of working on, it's hard, but once it's nice and clear and it's free, now I'm just starting to climb away and to gain airspeed. So as I'm coming into my spot here where I want to drop it off, I'm just going to start to kind of slow the aircraft down, and I'm picking my spot, and what I want to do is I want to bring the aircraft in directly over the spot, and eventually basically if the aircraft's over the spot then the load will be over the spot. So at the moment I'm trying to do it nice and smooth so it doesn't swing too much, and the spot that I've got picked out is kind of on the road. It's about 15 feet away from the pickup truck that's waiting, and I'm just going to pick a reference, so there's a kind of a little bit of open water there, and I'm going to use that as my reference. I want to put my load down on the road next to that. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of gently manipulating the helicopter to keep the load moving without making it swing as I'm bringing it down, and Today it's a bit difficult because we've got flat light, so I've got no shadow to kind of judge the height of the load above the ground, but so far it's looking pretty good. There we go, there's touchdown, pretty close to where I wanted it. So now I'm just going to move the hook out the way so it doesn't land directly on top of the load, because it can damage the core samples that are in there. And once I've moved the hook out the way and placed that safely on the ground, now I can start to descend down and park the helicopter, because I've got to get out and help the other guy unload these 1,500 pounds of core samples into the back of his truck. So as I'm coming down, I'm basically just picking my spot where I want to go. It's a nice clear road, so I know if I just put my tail facing down the road away from the truck, it's going to be nice and clear. So I'm just turning my tail to line it up with the road, and as I'm doing that, I'm looking, okay, whereabouts do I want to put my main rotor, because I've got kind of trees all around. They're not too tall, but I'm just looking to try and find a bit of an open space that I can put my main rotor where the trees aren't too tall, and it's going to be nice and clear, so I'm not going to hit anything. So I found my spot. As I'm coming down, just using my mirrors just to quickly check my tail, make sure it's clear. Also make sure I'm going to be looking at my skids, my bear paws, because I like to watch them come down, and then once they're down, then I can seat the aircraft, which it is now. And now it's secure on the ground. I can basically just wind it down to idle and shut the aircraft down. So now I've unloaded the core samples, it's time to go back to camp. And what we've done now is I've got a single drum of jet fuel that the guys bought out for me that I'm going to take back to camp. Drum of jet fuel weighs about 400 pounds, so for this machine that can lift 2,000 pounds, 400 pounds is nothing. So just getting the aircraft started, and once it's all up to flight RPM, then we'll be ready to kind of repeat the process. It's the same as before. Get the aircraft into a hover, and checking my centre of gravity, check my skids are clear, quick check my mirrors, make sure my hook is coming up cleanly with my line, and now I'm basically looking down through the long line window, pedal turning the aircraft into wind, and I'm trying to get my aircraft centred first over the hook so the hook picks up straight, and then once the hook picks up, then I can pull it over the top of the load and make sure that the load picks up kind of straight up this time, because I was quite annoyed that it drifted on my last one. So unfortunately we've got a bit of water on the screen there from the snow, but the load is coming up nicely, and yeah, it weighs 400 pounds, so I'm hardly pulling any power. So the load is up nice and clean off the road, and obstacles are all clear, so now I can start to push forward on the cyclic and start to gain some airspeed and gain some altitude, and get back into the cruise portion of the flight. Same as before, I'm coming into camp here. I want to make sure my routing doesn't fly over any buildings or persons or property, so I'm just kind of getting the aircraft set up into wind, making sure that my route to the pad is clear. And what I wanted to do is I'm trying to aim to put the drum of fuel in the top corner of the helipad once it starts to come into view. Because this load is lighter, it tends to swing it a little bit more easy. So you just have to kind of be light on the controls. So the helipad's coming into view now, and yeah, so I'm aiming for the top corner just there. That's where I want to put the drum. And what I want to do with this one is I'm going to put the drum, I'm going to use the remote hook to punch off the net once it's on the ground, and then I'm going to practice flying an empty hook because it's a lot harder because it swings a lot more. So yeah, I'm kind of wrestling with the machine a little bit, but I'm trying to get the swing out of the line. There's not much in there, but yeah, I'm not proficient enough yet to be able to fly this hook completely stationary. So just a bit of timing, just stopping the swing and then just lowering the collective to put the drum exactly where I want to put it. So there's the drum down. So again, I'm going to fly the hook over to the side, and then I'm going to bring the lines over so they're on. Now I'm going to release it, and the hook is free. Unfortunately, got a bit of a swing on it, so it's like, oh. So what I'm wanting to do now is I'm just controlling the hook, trying to arrest the swing on it, and I want to put it down at the edge of the helipad, but in the middle, kind of just here, so I can then land the aircraft just behind it. So I'm just kind of trying to arrest the swing here, maneuver the aircraft over the spot that I want to be, and slowly bring the hook down to touch down. And then what I'm going to do now is just come down and kind of coil the line up at the front of the helipad, and that way then the line is going to be all out of the front of the aircraft. And once all the kind of 100 feet's worth of line is in front, then what I'll do is I just back the aircraft up slightly to land so that all the line is in front of me. And what I'm doing is I'm just quickly checking in my mirrors just to make sure that the line is kind of taut out at front, and I'm not going to actually set down on the line, which can damage it. So kind of a bit of using your mirrors here to set the aircraft gently down on the helipad. And there we go, another job well done. Not too much of wrestling around. I'm just learning this long lining kind of gig. It's not something I've done much of in my career, so it's all about practice. So there we are. Well, there's the drum of fuel, and that was how you do a sling load. I'm just kind of starting at sling loads. It is a very, very tricky art form to master, and it's all about practice. So the more you do, the better you get. Until then, just got to kind of hang on and chase it around. So if you like this kind of thing, cool, give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. If you got any questions, stick them in the comments below. I love reading all your comments, and I'll see you next time.